Hi class, back again, and this time I'm bringing you objectives 4 and 5 of module 11. Without further ado, let me share that screen. All right, and we're going to bring you module 4 we're starting with, and that's to apply and evaluate our third model of motivation, which is called self-determination theory. Now, trans-theoretical model and motivational interviewing, which we talked about last time, were really born out of addictions work, addictions practice. And but for objective 4, I'm going to talk about self-determination theory, which is an older psychological theory that came out of work on personality. So it's a theory of personality and also addresses motivation. And it's the main idea is how people self-motivate or self-determine their behavior, make changes in their life. For example, without external influences. How are they motivated without external influences? And so we'll talk a little bit about external influences, which we're going to call extrinsic, external. And then we're going to talk a lot about internal influences, which we call intrinsic. Okay, it's been applied to a whole bunch of different fields: parenting, student learning, physical activity. There's a huge amount of literature on how much people exercise and how that's determined largely through or can be predicted through self-determination theory. And if you want to increase people exercising, well, then you've got to increase certain things. Okay, so what are the things that you need to foster motivation? Well, the idea behind motivation in self-determination theory is that there are 3 things that really make our motivation high. One is autonomy. I do not want to feel as though I've been ordered to do something. When I've been ordered to do something, my motivation is low. When I have a choice about what to do, my motivation goes up. Competence. The experience of mastery, being effective at some activity, knowing that I'm going to be effective, feeling that, and it's really perceived mastery. It's not even actual mastery. But if I perceive that I'm going to be effective at something, I'm going to be more likely to do it. And then finally, relatedness increases motivation. And that's this need to feel connected and belongingness with others. So having others who are supporting me gives me a foundation under which to make change. So these 3 things are all going to increase motivation. Okay, so let's talk about those 3 things. So autonomy is having that freedom to make choices, being in control of what you do rather than being told what to do. Auto comes from own, right? Self. And so autonomous behavior is behavior that originates from me, my choices, my freedom. So we can contrast autonomous versus controlled motivation. I'll just use an example of myself. I create a summer garden. I have a garden in the summertime, and I grow a whole bunch of vegetables out there, and it is autonomous work. It's hard work, but I am motivated to do it. I go out there all the time. I get bitten by bugs. I get all dirty and all that. I'm pulling weeds. I'm killing my back, and I'm doing it because I choose to do it. I'm motivated to do it without someone telling me to do it. But there's also the possibility of controlled motivation. And controlled motivation is when someone tells me to do something, gives me a deadline. You have to plant all your plants by this time. Well, you can imagine, where's my motivation going to be the strongest? When someone's telling me to do something, I'm like, I'm going to drag my feet. But when I have that autonomous motivation, I'll work really hard. So autonomy helps motivation. And so we can turn this into an example for substance use. Let's say that you go to court over a DUI charge, and that is resulting in court-ordered treatment, mandatory treatment. And a lot of times courts do this. I said do, sorry about that. So the court will order you to go into treatment. So they order you to go into treatment. Well, again, that's controlled motivation. I mean, you're not going to have the highest motivation in that treatment. You see what I'm saying? Now, it can be that the court orders you to do treatment and you really want to do treatment, and that may be autonomous. You also would choose that. You think it's a good thing for you, and your motivation would be higher as long as you've got that autonomous. But many times people do not want to go to treatment, and they're only going because the court is ordering them. And you can imagine that their motivation for change is not very good. And you probably heard before that you can't order somebody to go into counseling. Counseling just doesn't work very well. Okay, competence, the need to feel effective, right? And that's sort of similar to a concept that we've talked about called self-efficacy. There are differences, but I don't want to split hairs here with those differences. You can think of it like we talked about with self-efficacy in the cognitive chapter. It's feeling like you can do it. I mean, I'm effective at gardening. I'm good at it. I can grow stuff. I know how to do it. I know a lot of things about gardening. And higher competence is going to be higher motivation. If it's something that I absolutely don't know how to do, it may be really hard for me to get motivated. If I don't feel like I can be competent at it, I don't feel like I'm going to be good at it, right? And so I'm that way with video games. I have like extremely low motivation to play video games, but it's largely because I don't feel like I'm good at it. And usually when I play video games, like my godkids try to get me to play video games with them, and I'm just like, I'm so bad and that I just want to I'm just like, take this controller, do it. I can't handle this. So higher competence you tend to result in higher motivation. So you can imagine how that might relate to feeling that you're able to change, you're able to stop your drug use, you're able to go without a drug or cut down. Finally, relatedness. And relatedness is the need to feel connection with others, a sense of belonging, of caring, of being cared for by others, being accepted by others. And that gives us a sense of security. When we have that sense of belonging, we have a sense of security. And more relatedness tends to result in more motivation. I do have my partner also gardens, and so that he we talk about gardening a lot and stuff like that, and I have other friends who garden, and I feel like there's this sort of community there, right? It gives me a sense of belonging, a sense of security. That is going to play into my motivation too. However, relatedness plays a less significant role in motivation than autonomy and competence. Autonomy and competence are like number one. Then comes relatedness. Okay, but all are important for motivation. All of them are. Okay, finally, under self-determination theory, we talk about a couple of different types of motivation. One is extrinsic motivation, and that is being motivated to perform an activity to earn something, to get something, or to avoid punishment. Intrinsic motivation is when I'm motivated to perform an activity for its own sake. I actually just like doing it, right? And so that kind of intrinsic motivation, we're going to see that as, well, number one, that is the superior form of motivation, because that's going to get you working harder than extrinsic motivation. So extrinsic, another example would be being paid for something. If somebody can pay me for gardening, is my motivation going to be as high as if I just garden because I like gardening? Because obviously nobody pays me to garden. Okay, so let's go a little bit deeper into this. Intrinsic motivation is doing something for its own sake. It might be out of curiosity. It's your choice to do it. You're not doing it to satisfy anyone. You're not doing it to get any reinforcement. It actually just feels good to do it. So you just like doing it. Maybe you play piano or play guitar or something like that, and it just feels good to do it, and that's a sense of self-determined behavior. Remember, this is called self-determination theory, SDT. It's got autonomy, it's got competence, it's got relatedness. We're going to tend to get that high intrinsic motivation. And again, this is a more superior motivation. This is related to protective behaviors, behaviors that are protective against substance use, things like harm reduction, things like being motivated to change substance use. Extrinsic motivation is doing something for a consequence or an outcome. It's like could be social pressure, it could be for money, and most substance use and behaviors of treatment all falls under that category. And that is that extrinsic or controlled motivation. It's related, it actually is related to the negative effects of addictive behavior, right? More problems and greater use, greater symptoms of addictive behavior or substance use disorder. Okay, so SDT in practice, again, it wasn't built for practice, but nonetheless, it has a lot to say about how you would do therapy with people with substance use disorder. So you want to promote autonomy, competence, and relatedness that can increase motivation and increase well-being. What does that look like? Well, number one, I don't have it on here, but you got to create a relationship with a client, right? You need to have that supportive, compassionate, empathetic relationship with the client. And you're exerting minimal pressure here. Remember, we don't want that extrinsic, controlled motivation. We want an autonomous, intrinsic motivation. So you're not exerting any pressure for the client to do anything. You're going to encourage clients to pursue activities based on their own goals and their own values. And I hope you're seeing here the similarities with motivational interviewing, because the two are entwined just like that. And actually, trans-theoretical therapy, motivational interviewing, and self-determination theory are often used together. You're going to validate the client's perspectives. Again, you're not trying to direct things. Clients are sort of figuring out what they need to do. And you're going to trust and support the client's ability to make choices. There's that competence factor in there. And you've got to, as a therapist, not be invested in a particular outcome. For example, abstinence or something like that. You are not trying to drive them in that direction. The idea is that if you can get that intrinsic motivation going, if they really want to autonomously cause a change in their lives themselves, they'll be way more highly motivated to do it. And if you are pushing them toward a particular end, that's going to be that controlled extrinsic motivation. And that won't provide as good of a motivation for them. So it's going to be less effective. So you have to be not invested in a particular outcome. Okay, well, so what does the research show on self-determination theory? It's pretty clear that perceived autonomy is good. It lowers relapse risk. And so having a sense that you're choosing to stop on your own, choosing to cut down on your own, that it's your choice, not a therapist's choice, not a court's choice, not your family's choice, but it's your choice, tends to result in better outcomes. You may say, well, what about all this stuff we talked about with contingency management, where you're like paying people, for example, to have a clean urine test, or to have a negative urine test, urine analysis for, let's say, opiates or cocaine or something like that. You can actually use that too. And the two of those together, because you remember I talked about that being very effective as well. If you can get that intrinsic motivation high, that sense of autonomy, competence, relatedness, if you can get that high and the client feels as though they are making their own choice there, and then, so they've made their own choice to stop using, let's say, heroin, okay, and then you have them come in and do contingency management. They come in and do a urine analysis, and they get some tokens or some money or some goods for having a negative urine test. The two of those together are really, really good. But again, you don't want to rely too heavily on that extrinsic motivation, because especially early on in the change process, you want people to have a sense of autonomy there. But the two together work very, very well. Okay, so lessons from these various motivational models before we turn to harm reduction. Motivation is multidimensional. It comes from a lot of different sources. It's based on both internal, intrinsic influences, and it's also based on external influences. So there's both. Change tends to be gradual. We're not motivated versus unmotivated. We're not changing versus not changing. There are great gradations of change. There are gradations of motivation. Autonomy should be respected and promoted. The client has to make their own decisions here. The client has to convince themselves of the reasons why they need change and their goals about how to make that change. Change has got to occur in this non-judgmental, compassionate, supportive environment. You're supporting the client's change, but you're definitely not doing this, because this is what does not result in change. So what doesn't influence motivation or change addictive behaviors? Very well. One, scare tactics. We learned that about DARE, right? The DARE program was all about scaring people, right? And it just didn't work. Coercion, confrontation, that kind of thing, like, you're killing yourself. You've got to stop using, you're killing your family. You've got to stop. All of that, the coercion that says if you don't stop using, you're going to get your children taken away. You're going to get your housing taken away. You're going to lose your food stamps and all that kind of thing. It just doesn't seem to work. Okay, not at least in the long term. And sometimes it results in worse outcomes. Lecturing, scolding, punishment, it actually just doesn't work. So if you want people's motivation to go up, don't try to scare them. Don't try to order them around. Let them have their autonomy and help them, facilitate them to talk their way into change, right? So we want that kind of change talk. Okay, objective 5, we're going to get into some of the harm reduction approaches. We've talked a little bit about these in the past, but we're going to get a little bit heavier into them and see how they work. So what are harm reduction approaches? Harm reduction approaches are, for example, naloxone, which is Narcan. Narcan comes in a nasal spray, and it is basically a way of blocking some of the opium receptors so that if a person is overdosing, and this is to be used when the person is overdosing. If a person is overdosing and they take Narcan, that will reverse the effects of the opiates and they will not overdose. So it's harm reduction because they're not dying. You're taking away the dying part. Needle exchange programs, and those are where people come in and they exchange dirty needles for clean needles. Great programs that are harm reduction because they reduce hepatitis, which is hepatitis C is a heavy risk in needle users because they spread hepatitis from person to person. Also HIV, you probably know, can be spread through needles. Another thing is medication-assisted treatment, and so that would be something like methadone. Methadone is an opiate itself. You are not getting away from opiate addiction if you are on methadone per se, because you may be addicted to the methadone. Actually, medication-assisted treatment is what I'm chewing in my mouth right now, which is nicotine gum, right? I'm still addicted to nicotine, but I'm not having all of the problems of tobacco smoke and that is hurting my lungs. So it's safer. It's better than nicotine, and that's a medicated assisted treatment. And like nicotine for me, because I've been on it for now a lot of years, because okay, so I'm 56 years old and I had stopped smoking when I was 33, so it's been a long time I've been on. And people might stay on methadone for life as well. Housing First is a program where you give people who are on the street, unhoused people who have alcohol problems, housing. And you give them housing and you allow them to drink alcohol in that housing. So if they show up drunk, that does not preclude them from getting housing. And if they are drinking in their house, that does not take away their housing. And what they find is that we get a lot of harm reduction. And in fact, just having housing seems to decrease alcohol use, because people are not out on the street with others drinking alcohol. They have a place to go. Okay, harm reduction reduces the negative consequences of substance use and allows for moderate use and also safer use, right? So it's not about quitting, it's about using in a way that is safer, right? Harm reduction gives us choices. It supports autonomy because it doesn't say, you need to quit. It says, let's look at the things that are going wrong in your life and try to reduce those, right? The focus isn't on the substance being bad. It's not on the person being bad. Instead, it's saying that this substance is associated with these negative outcomes for you. So how can we change those negative outcomes so that we don't have as many of those? Or can we eliminate the negative outcomes? There's a lot of controversy, as you can imagine, over enabling drug users. So there's been a lot of work going on in various cities to have safe injection sites. So what's a safe injection site? That's where a person goes and injects, say, opiates, let's say, or cocaine or meth, and it is done in a way where they are monitored. And if they do start to overdose, you can administer Narcan, and you can also have safe needles there, clean needles there. So, people actually go to these places to shoot up. And these places are about harm reduction, right? Well, you can imagine in communities, they're like, you're just providing a place and making it easier for people to shoot up. And what we know is that it does bring down opiate-related deaths. But that, again, the research support doesn't often change people's minds. Housing First is also a great program, like I was saying, where for people who are unhoused and who have alcohol problems. But can you imagine trying to sell that in a community where people say, well, we're using public money to pay for people to drink in their apartments? You can imagine that's an enabling argument. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about mindfulness-based harm reduction. It's not harmful, it's actually really good. And that's where, so mindfulness, which I'm sure you've heard of, in the context of, say, mindfulness meditation or something like that, it basically places the individual mentally in the present state of awareness, the here and now, right? So you can see in this little picture here that the person is thinking about, oh, I got to do this, I got to do that, oh, this song, this, that, while they're walking along the street, and the dog is just thinking about the trees that are right in front of him. That's it. The trees and the sun. He is in the here and now, right? And so basically, in using mindfulness-based harm reduction, it allows people to become aware of the cues that trigger the desire to use substances, and being aware of those cues, and then knowing what to do when those cues come, right? Which is oftentimes do nothing, right? We're going to get to that in a second, can help. And it usually is going to help at the level, not of making a change, but at the level of maintaining a change. So we'll get really good results with relapse prevention with mindfulness therapy. Okay, so what's his state of mindfulness? Again, it's awareness of the present moment, the here and now. We use our senses for that. It's what do I see in front of me? It is what do I hear right now? It is what do I smell right now? What is the feeling on my skin that the shirt is making on me right now, right? And things like that. So it's deliberately paying attention to these things, describing these things, right? There are 3 trees in front of me, 4, I think, in that picture, and the sun is in between the trees, and accepting it, not changing it. Okay, so what's going to happen to the person who is trying to, for example, stay off of a substance? Let's say I didn't do nicotine for a few days and I try to do some mindfulness. I am going to possibly get something in my mind is going to trigger a sort of craving, and I might feel that craving and I might feel tense. I might feel uncomfortable because of that, but I'm not going to try to change that. Okay, and that's key. No need to make sense of something that's happening. You don't have to reason about it. You just observe it as is. There's 3 trees. I'm having a craving for nicotine, right? I just observe it as is. It takes a lot of practice. It is not easy. I've been trying to do it for a long time, and it's really actually quite hard. The focus, again, is not controlling what happens, but rather controlling how we respond. So if I were to get a craving, right, and I do some mindfulness and I sit with that craving and I realize that my body is tense, that I feel like I need something in my mouth right now. I know that sounded bad. Okay. I'm controlling, however, how I respond to that. I don't need to do anything. Okay, mindfulness perspective on addiction. Well, mindfulness basically treats addiction as an attempt to hoard or manufacture or get more positive experiences, right? So I may think like, I'm having a moment, I'm having a craving, I need something. I got to get up and get some nicotine. And that is a very impulsive way of doing things. And that's typically how drug use is. It's pretty impulsive. The addictive behavior is automatic, it's impulsive, it's habitual, but the practice of mindfulness helps you to sort of let go of that I need to respond thing. And so we're going to talk about some mindfulness practices that allow you to not respond to, say, a craving. Okay, so mindfulness-based interventions for addictive behaviors might be things like body scan. Body scan is really popular. It's where you start some point in your body, usually your toes or in your head, and you think, how do my toes feel right now? I want you to just think about this. How are my toes feeling right now? Can I feel some tingling in my toes? Do I feel anything in my toes? Do I feel the bottom of the floor on my feet? And then go up to your feet. What do you feel in your feet? What do you feel in your lower legs, in your calves, in the front of your calf, in the back of your calf, deep into the muscle of your calf? What are you feeling? And then move through the entire body that way. That is a way of kind of centering ourselves on that here and now experience, on the sensations that we're having. When you get a craving or an urge to do something, right? So I may get a craving, I need some nicotine right now. Instead of getting up and getting some nicotine immediately, I'm encouraged to sort of ride those waves. So this is a temporary thing, as is everything, right? It's going to come and then it's going to go. And I can just sit with it. It's going to come and then it's going to go. And I'm sitting with it. And while it's intense for a little bit, it tends to ride down. So the wave gets high, the wave gets low. Finally, there's a technique called sober, and that's when you get an urge, when you get this triggering thing where you're just like, oh, I need something right now. Stop, slow down. Let's take it slow because we want to be thoughtful about this, mindful about this, right? We don't want to just impulsively act. Observe the craving, observe the cue, breathe, focus on breathing, expand awareness to the here and now, expand it to our different senses. What am I hearing? What am I seeing? Get more of the here and now, and then respond to it with self-compassion, which is to say, it's okay, sweetheart. You don't have to feel bad about yourself. You're just riding these waves, and that's okay. What does the research say about mindfulness? Well, it's pretty good. It's got good outcomes for nicotine. It's got good outcomes for alcohol use, and it's especially good, as I mentioned before, for relapse prevention. So relapse prevention does very good. If a person is practicing mindfulness and can get through those urges, that's a really very quite effective for relapse prevention. Okay, well, what are your main take-home points from Module 11? By the way, the second to last module of the whole class. Main take-home points. Motivation is multidimensional. It's complex, right? We've got all of these aspects of motivation: intrinsic, extrinsic, autonomy, change, stages of change. It comes from a lot of different places. It comes from within, it comes from outside. Motivation is important to address in treatment, and almost all addiction treatments will feature some aspect of motivational theory. Autonomy supporting approaches are grounded in evidence, and all of these approaches have to do with autonomy. I know I talked about that word with regard to self-determination theory, but it's in there in everything else. And if you go back and look at motivational interviewing, you're going to see that too, where they are not telling the person what to do. Nobody's telling you what to do. You have a choice of what to do. You have a choice to keep using. You have a choice to change, right? But the therapist is there to sort of facilitate, to help you think through this stuff, and to support you as you're thinking through it. Coercion does not work well. And you can't just tell somebody to change. You can't just say, well, duh, smoking causes lung cancer, so why don't you stop smoking? It just doesn't work. It seems like it should be that easy, but it's not. That kind of intervention, TV type approach just doesn't work. I hope you guys enjoyed this chapter. I certainly did. And I hope you have a great day.